Hey folks, g'day Australia. It's Mike Tramp here from White Lion. Looking forward to bring you a lot of news you don't know.
So excited. You'll be coming back to Australia. I believe the last time you toured here was in 2008, but you actually moved here in the late 90s, didn't you?
I came to Tasmania at the end of 1999. I thought I'd just start my life right over at the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, a pretty interesting choice to go to Tasmania. Was there a specific reason you chose Tasmania or?
Well, at that time, I was married to an Australian, Sheila,
Yes, very nice.
and she'd been in America for 3 decades, and we had a son together, and the music business was changing and stuff like that, and suddenly this idea came back or came to us about her sister saying, "Why don't you come live at my ranch in Tasmania and just just start all over?"
Yeah.
And suddenly it was
Wow.
there, and then I woke up one day saying, "Hey, there's no music here."
Yes, that's the only slight downside, I think.
But one thing led to another, and a couple of years later, I would be in Melbourne.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, lovely. Can you tell us a little bit about the upcoming tour here and your reimagining of White Lion's hits?
Yeah, so obviously during the years I was living in Australia, I was producing and recording new solo albums and also performing some White Lion songs with the Australian band that I had. But it always just felt like I was just kind of just mucking around with it. It wasn't really anything. And for the next 16 years, I would be recording solo albums one after another. Now coming up to 14 solo albums. And especially as I was touring Europe and in America, they simply couldn't help adding the White Lion logo to the posters and things like that. The voice of White Lion. You remember that great looking guy from White Lion? Well, he's coming,
With
all
the
that kind of jazz. And I just think that it was just really a matter of me, waiting it out till I was clear in my head of how I was going to do it. Because I couldn't revisit my Tramp 26 years old. I had to be realistic of who I was at that time. So once I started working with my good friend Marcus Nand, guitar player in the new version of White Lion, we wanted the songs. Of course, we wanted to reproduce the songs note for note, but we also wanted that this was the new improved Coca-Cola.
yeah, yeah.
And then you could, of course, stand and look, what's new and improved about that? Well, in reality, 30 years of knowledge, 30 years of really being very familiar with the songs, and decades of music have come and gone, and what's left and how you're going to reproduce it. So
Yeah.
now it's really a matter of going out there and performing the songs. I was saying this in another interview. Now it's 100% about the music and the songs. Um, where in the 80s the music was almost competing with the show and the look of the band. Now we're mature people that play the songs before we do the moves.
Yeah, definitely. And I've really noticed how have you managed to refine and retain your voice after all these years? I can really notice a difference across your work from White Lion to Freak of Nature and to now. Yeah, I think what you said before about really, it's really about the music. I guess how have you managed to retain your voice?
Well, I've actually also maintained to keep my waistline the same.
Yes, impressive.
You know what? Obviously, I don't, you will recognize that it's the same singer, but it was very important for me that that the growth of Mike Tramp through all the albums that I've done and the touring and the traveling became, let's say in reality, the band had not broken up. There would have been a natural progression Vito Bratt and myself, which of course were the foundation of White Line, the songwriters, already knew that when we were recording Main Attraction, our fourth album, our last album, if you go back, you will already seen that we're making the first step towards prog rock, where we wanted the band to go. We were going much more towards bands like Journey, Kansas, Styx, and whatever bands would have come. We wanted the band to be a band of music, and little by little, the hair would become less important.
Yeah.
So with my albums that have gone on, my voice have naturally just changed bit by bit a year. So when I reintroduce the White Lion songs, I definitely cannot sing them in the same key.
Mm-hmm.
So once we refurbished them and once we found the new key to the songs, I also went out there now with the knowledge of knowing that I wrote those songs 40 years ago. I wanted to sort of say, I'm going to sing them a little different.
Yeah. It's very impressive. And what are some of your favorite re-envisaged White Line songs to play live?
Well, they're definitely not the 5 famous ones, because those are kind of like they're tamed within the 4-minute version because they're radio songs. But songs like Lady of the Valley and Cry for Freedom, and now we're brought out on the tour El Salvador, which is a song I wrote in 1980 before I even came to America. Going back and doing stuff like that brings a lot of history to the songs. But I have fallen in love with both songs like, Tell Me and Little Fighter and Wait, and getting to sing them without having to be Rudolf Nureyev on stage.
Yeah.
It's another way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you'll be playing alongside Marcus, Jerry, and Brent. How did you guys all come together and decide to pay homage, if you will, to White Line?
Yeah. I mean, Jerry Best on bass and I, had a band together in from 92 to 95 called Freak of Nature. And at the end of that band, Marcus Nand came into the band. So you basically have 3 guys on stage who've known each other for 30 years. Okay. Jerry Best played on my first solo album, Capricorn. There was a brotherhood there. And then, it didn't take very long for Brent, the drummer, to instantly fit in, because we are a band of brothers.
Yeah.
And everybody knows we're out there behind the songs, that the songs are what matters.
100%. Definitely. Yeah. And you've spent some time with some huge musicians in your time, like AC/DC, Aerosmith, Kiss, just to name a few. Is there one of those bands that you admire and got along with really well?
Well, the 2 first bands you mentioned, AC/DC and Aerosmith were, of course, heroes.
Mm-hmm.
2 completely different bands in personality. AC/DC we almost never saw. Aerosmith I became very, very close with. And it's almost like what we're talking about. Aerosmith was almost doing what I'm doing right now, coming back and getting a second chance, because they had ended up in some really dark holes of their life with drug abuse and stuff like that. Now coming back completely clean, playing the songs like a badass rock and roll band. That's where they're, and I learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
And then you look at AC/DC. I saw every AC/DC show from the side of the stage every single night, and the admiring how solid, and they going out there saying, this is what we do. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're playing our songs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just if ever you doubt anything, you just remember that.
Yeah. And on that topic, I suppose, of, the rock star sort of life, you're really down to earth and really very humble. How have you managed to not let that sort of fame get to your head all these years?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, there might been a few moments during the 80s where we were gotten caught up and stuff like that. But when I look back at myself, I also know that there was a lot of time I strayed from the flock. I strayed from the migration to the hotel bar, and I ended up in my hotel room resting my voice, putting conditioner in my hair, night cream.
Yeah. Wow. I hardly believe it, but I do believe it because it's you. But I'm just like,
yeah. And then of course, when I did my first solo album, and maybe I asked myself the question, or maybe I didn't, because the second I wrote the first song, I just realized that's who you are, because it's basically also how I started writing the first White Lion songs. I wrote them as a solo artist, and when Vito then came and sat in front of me and took over with the electric guitar, that's where the songs would go. But the songs always came from the singer-songwriter campfire, raised on Dylan and Johnny Cash, Neil Young. So it's really a matter of always just returning to yourself.
yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
thank God I did that. And that's, of course, also the approach I did in Australia. I felt very much at home, both with the Australian approach, the humor, and everything like that. It says, I don't have to be anybody here but myself.
That's right. That's right. You've definitely adopted our laid back sort of
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I'm not a hide behind sunglasses kind of person. Which is one of the reasons why I always lose sunglasses, because I take them off when I talk to people and then I forget where I left them.
Yep. Me too. Aside from music, what are some of your hobbies these days?
Well, regular life is my hobby. I mean, I have a farm in Denmark. And even though right now I'm in New York, and we're preparing for the tour and things like that, I do like, I grew up on a farm too. Even though I'm a city boy from Copenhagen, my grandparents' farm was where I grew up when my mom couldn't handle us at home. So it's a place I always return to, the great outdoors, and it's really just a matter. I need to have a break
Yeah.
from the rock and roll world,
Mhm.
even if it's just for half the day out in the field and riding around on the tractor or fixing the roof. When I return to the rock and roll, I'm recharged.
Yeah.
I don't, of course I have a massive album collection, stuff like that. But I can't listen to Queen and Thin Lizzy every day. I need a break from it. I can't listen to Bruce Springsteen every day, because I want to return to them. And so yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I read a lot. I read a lot because I'm really not a big fan of streaming, million TV shows and things like that. I sometimes need to make sure that I don't move too fast into the future, because I'm completely a nostalgic freak. I want to remain in the past.
Yeah, yeah. No,
My iPhone is still the first. Of course, it's a lie.
deal. No, that's cool. Speaking of different countries as well, you have lived and worked in many countries. And I think in the past you did mention that you felt almost like a bit of a nomad. Do you still feel that way today, or do you definitely feel more settled where you are?
I'm getting very, very close to wanting to really settle down and saying, okay, I'm slowly sort of in a preparation of moving back to the US, and then saying, that's it. This is it.
Yeah, yeah, understandable.
As much, of course, I'm looking it's very emotional for me to coming back to Australia. I play Melbourne on January 31st. It's the birthday it's my son's birthday. He turns 31 that day.
No.
It's like there's lots of stuff,
Yeah, big attachment to Australia, definitely.
yeah.
What music or artists have really captured your attention, or that you think are special within the last 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm a classic freak, so I always return to the gods.
Yeah.
It's like the greatest books have been written, and the greatest rock records have been recorded. They won't come again. So for me to be excited also about going out playing White Lion, and that's that form of hard rock, I have to take a break from that. There hasn't come, in all honesty, any new hard rock bands in that I can lean on.
Yeah.
So I listen much more
The God.
to singer-songwriters. I even go into jazz and things like that, stuff that, of course, just like when I was a kid, I didn't like red wine. That would change with time. When I played, was in White Line, of course, I would never listen to. Now it's more to when I return to what I do as a profession. I can't just have listened to Poison.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, in all fairness, nothing gets it, but I have to, I have to break free from him.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Is there anything in particular you miss about Australia and are looking forward to once you're here?
Yeah, I miss, and I'm saddened that I wasn't able to break through when I was there into having a career there, because I would have remained there. I loved Australia. I loved living. I think when I lived there, Melbourne were one of the greatest cities I'd ever been to, and I felt so at home. I love the Australian audience. I love the Australian way, the humor, everything about it was so close to similarities of the good parts of Denmark. So I was right at home.
Yeah.
So there are all those things that I miss from that time.
Yeah.
But it was just in a time of when music was, the classics remained, but it almost there wasn't a space or any tools. That weren't the new MTV where a band like I Could Go On and things like that.
Yeah.
It was, I don't even know how to describe it, that just weren't the places for me to break through.
Unfortunately, I still think Australia has a long way to go with the music industry and our own artists and things like that. It's still not the best, but hopefully hopefully it can change soon.
That's why we bring an old band from the 80s back.
Yeah. Why not? Last question. There's a lot of fans that are so grateful you've celebrated these White Lion songs. Why was it important for you to recreate these songs, and how did it feel to recreate them?
Yeah, without any disrespect to myself and the band that I started and the sound like that, I personally cannot stand listening to the versions from that time. I'm not, I was in a completely different place. So like I said earlier, for me to play these songs again, I had to find something that felt, new and fresh, even though it was the same thing. Mm-hmm. So by finding, by singing these songs again and changing the keys of the songs, and it's almost like they became fatter and fuller and not so gung ho. We were so fast and singing so high and flying in the air. Now it was almost, I'm going up to the mic stand, I'm just going, and I'm fully in control.
Yeah.
I sometimes say on stage, I used to run out on stage in White Line and started screaming at the audience, and the band would look at me, he's going to collapse in 10 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going out fully confident and saying, we're going to play these songs now. Definitely. For the sake of the music.
Yeah, beautiful. And they've got a lot more depth to them now, I think, as well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with great 80s songs.
No, I understand. And and to add to your last question, we're just basically finished recording volume 3 to end the trilogy. So it is going to be a completion. So almost every White Lion song has a new updated version.
Fantastic. And what can we expect from your tour here in Australia? I suppose, obviously, a lot of the older renditions. Is there anything new maybe that we haven't?
Yeah, well, yes and no. Mm-hmm. I think that what maybe a lot of people don't also mention is that the audience has also gotten older. So we're not going to go out and do the same dog and pony trick. Yeah. We're going out there. I mean, we're actually going to take the stage much more like AC/DC, where we're playing the songs, mm-hmm. and leave the rest to whoever still want to try to do that kind of song. I'm looking very much forward to play the music, not perform the music.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that.
Yeah, no, well said, well said. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Enjoyed you coming back, and we can't wait for the tour.
Thanks a lot for the support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.